packed up my rigging, soon to be leaving this outfit unknown. I'll always remember the friends I've made here and the kindness they've shown. But it's time to be moving, this road I'm choosing is calling me home. I've set my course for up north where the cold winds are blowing. There's no use in trying to make sense of what I am feeling. I know that the answer lies over the distant horizon, where the ghosts of vaqueros and the wild bandoleros are living. To the high, wide, and lonesome, the home of the buckaroo dream. To the big smoky valley and the loneliest highway where the cowboy is king. Now all that matters is work in Nevada for the roundup this spring. This dream I'm chasing lies in the Great Basin and seasons to change. I'll take my chance on a ranch in the high desert rain. There's no use in trying to make sense of what I am feeling. I know that the answer lies over the distant horizon, where the ghosts of vaqueros and wild bandoleros are living. To the high, wide, and lonesome, the home of the buckaroo dream. All right, Raul, let her out. Trying to make sense of what I am feeling. I know that the answer lies over the distant horizon, where the ghosts of vaqueros and the wild bandoleros are living. To the high, wide, and lonesome, the home of the buckaroo dreams. To the high, wide, and lonesome, the home of the buckaroo dreams. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yes. Listen, thank you for joining us tonight, where we hope we're going to give you some raw truth, like you haven't seen or heard before. And yeah, we opened with a cowboy band called New West. That I filmed over a decade ago, and I thought it was appropriate because the Bundys, to the shame of our federal government, are still locked up after being found not guilty on all charges in Oregon. They're locked up in a federal private prison in Pahrump, Nevada, as we speak here live on the 15th of September. And it shouldn't be. They shouldn't be in jail. The BLM should be in jail. And what's my point? With me is this beautiful lady. Next to me is Faith Bashir. Welcome, Faith.
Hi, everybody. Good to be on the air.
She's here, live in the studio. She is still, and was for a long time, what's called a realtor. There's a difference between a realtor and a real estate salesman. I was a salesman, but I never had a broker's license. She, on the other hand, had a broker's license, and it takes a little more smarts. So, Faith, what is it you want to talk about? You want to talk about Jack Benny and comedy? You want to talk about Irma, or you want to talk about the financial hurricane that's blowing across America?
I would love to talk about the financial hurricane that's blowing across America. In fact, it is hitting us on our shores even stronger and harder than Irma and the other hurricanes that have been taking a lot of people's homes away. This particular hurricane is going to be taking away quite a few more homes. In fact, a lot of people who were victimized by the mortgage crisis are going to soon find that their loan modifications that they were given through these national mortgage settlement statements are going to be called due imminently by the UCL Foreclosure Act that has been positioned to take the place of the Homeowners Bill of Rights on its sunset on January 1st, 2018.
January?
January
21st, 2018. That's
First, yes.
very close and coming up fast.
It is. It is coming up fast.
Explain that to people. What does that mean in plain English? The government no longer has to bother, or the bankers no longer have to bother giving, they just say 30 days, get out of your house.
Essentially, yes. The way that it was written, and William Bretz was one of the drafters of the UCL Foreclosure Act, and they had an opening in Seattle to where we did go do a protest way back in 2014 when the first draft came out. That first draft essentially stated that they didn't say outright it was the MERS, the Mortgage Electronic Registration System. They said that there was going to be some type of a system in play that they were going to utilize to, in layman's term, remove the holder and due course privileges across the nation by overriding so that a servicer could hold a note and initiate a foreclosure within 30 days so that they wouldn't have to go through the judicial process of longer than 30 days to kick a person out of their home that the person actually owns legally outright.
Wow, I hope that makes you feel warm and fuzzy.
Makes me feel warm and fuzzy right here.
Please don't hit the microphone.
Yeah, don't hit the microphone.
Sorry.
Yeah, keep the microphone in place.
Sorry.
Anyway, people, about 18 million people, last time I checked, have been made homeless by fraudulent loan procedures and fraudulent evictions by what I like to term as the bank gangsters. And Faith believes that there's a way to undo this criminal network. I believe the criminal network, and I'm taking my hat off for you people that tuned in today. I think I'll put my hat right here, right there, where we have Take Back America logo. Because you understanding this is part of the reason we can take back America. The reason everything seems so confusing when you sign a home mortgage, and I just signed one a few years ago, and I said, wait a minute, I'm not the lessor and I'm not the lessee. What is this lessor-lessee language doing in my home mortgage? A year or two later, I went down to the Santa Barbara records and I pulled up the record of filings. And not only was my original date of which I had refinanced, but there was this thing called MERS, Mortgage Electronic Registration System, is that right?
That is correct. AKA in our industry, the member racketeering system that was implemented for the tax aversion scheme that essentially swapped out in exchange for your property and the rights to use your property, their antecedent debts through tax avoidance under the miscuing of Kirby versus U.S. Lumber. And those IRS codes, in case you're interested, are 63 and 108.
63 and 108. And I was quite shocked, Faith, when I looked at this record and I saw MERS assigning my note to an organization that wasn't even registered with the California corporations in Sacramento. They weren't there at the date. And then they send it to somebody else, and somebody else assigned to somebody else, and then MERS pops in again. And MERS is, and I never even heard of MERS. I'm like, what is this MERS? It turns out, by doing the way they're doing it, they're cheating the counties out of millions and millions of dollars in fees.
Well, it's not just
Explain that.
It's not just that. I mean, they're obscuring title and they're not disclosing who the true party of interest is.
Which is what you really care about.
Right, and exactly, and you should care about it because whenever you have MERS as a nominee beneficiary by a quote lender, those quote lenders are not necessarily registered with FinCEN or a banking institution in and of themselves. They're actually an origination for a tax-exempt pass-through REMIC or a real estate investment conduit that actually is never designed to hold either the boat note or the deed. And they come back after you in a court of law, and I'm sure some of you are actually familiar with this, that the certificate holders of XYZ, Trustee, U.S. Bank, Bank of New York Mellon, or HSBC are coming back to sue you in a non-judicial or judicial format as a certificate holders to kick you out of your home. Well, the thing about that is ultimately at the end of the day, they cannot prove that they are the holders in due course because because if you go actually and plow through all that information on the Securities and Exchange Commission, you'll see the 8K reports that they file after the fact, because these were only held for a year before they were swapped out into another investment conduit. That 8K report has a Kennedy clause, and that Kennedy clause specifically states that the certificate holders cannot be a holder in due course. They only own compound certificates, and that's it.
Uh-oh, ding, 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 ding. A red light should be going off now. The police should be closing in on the bank gangsters, but they're not.
No.
They're not. They have perfected the most marvelous white-collar
Oh, it was brilliant.
criminal racketeering. I mean, this fits RICO to a T. The problem is the judges are in on it.
Oh, they are.
The attorneys that are foreclosing are in on it, and frequently an attorney will show up. Like Cindy Brown's case, I've been to 6, 7 of her hearings. Never do I see the same attorney opposing her.
Oh, they won't.
They swap them. Every time it's another different attorney, and they have no standing. They don't even give her notice, so she couldn't even send them documents.
Well, the thing is with the MERS system is the MERS system actually assigns the salvage attorneys to go out and actually gives them the information of what they need to file. So they're given the courts what are called ta-da documentation.
What kind?
Ta-da!
Ta-da! People, I hope you're picking up on this. Try to understand us. And here's the website we're going to go to a little while. Stephen had it just up there. It's wetheplaintiffs.com. Plural. This is a construction of faith. I'm not smart enough to put something like this together.
Right, and what I did way back when is when all this was coming back, because I'm a volunteer federal witness of mortgage crimes in the Inland Empire that was thrown under the bus, and they went after originally because they thought I was some weird crime lord criminal. Which I wasn't. I had my identity stolen and had to file a $4 million bankruptcy.
Just like Cindy Brown had her identity stolen, and lots of people.
Yeah, well, they took my broker's license and ran rampant with it.
Oh, that's really bad.
Yeah,
and did the state real estate commission go after them?
No, but the NAR is now interested to talking with the witnesses who testified against me for the fabrication of documentation submitted to the court.
The
that was
NAR,
allowed. The NAR,
the National Association of Realtors, which is not a government organization.
No.
The state should be going after it.
The state should, but they're
bought
limited
off.
they're limited in their jurisdiction.
I think they're bought off.
Well, they can only do so much. With the National Association, because I'm a litigation liaison way back when for the National Association of Real Estate. And so they only have certain jurisdiction. They can go after a licensee if they're not doing something that's proper or within the code of ethics. So what they are doing instead, in this particular case, they're going after this Joe REO, or Joe Quinteros, who actually falsified documents or fabricated evidence, which is called spoilage of evidence, because he was using comps for an unlawful detainer, which is your renter court, by trying to state that an estate home that's never been a rental ever was a rental, and in fact it was a rental that rented out for $5,000, $4,500 a month, and we're going to take comps for a year and a half back and try to put this forward together and package it. And he did that, and he actually lied in front of the judge and said that he offered me cash to keys.
Which judge did he lie in front of?
That would be Irma Poole Ashby of the Superior Court. She was under Daniel Artello. He's the head justice who has the vested interest ownership in First Team Real Estate. And I'll get to that in a second because that's also on my website because they did that in exchange for the REO listing to which he took later on the property. And I wasn't allowed to review that at all on the evidence that was submitted. So that happened.
Wow. Well, let's bring up her website so people can see what it looks like. Can we take a shot at her website and show them what they're going to see there?
Yeah. At the very beginning.
Here's her website.
And I put it up
We
there.
the plaintiffs.
Yeah, we were working on this all afternoon to make sure we got it up to you and complete and full. What you can see is connections to my Facebook page, which I've held an online peaceful protest that actually goes over in great detail the premeditation of the mortgage crash in the tax avoidance scheme thereof. And if you go to my website or on the Facebook, you can actually scroll back and see the things that I've been doing live. This particular live television show is just a result of that, and the website was an update to that. One of the things on the website, it's going to show you the actual draft from 2014 of the UCL Foreclosure Act, Procedures Act. And when you do read it, it is going to read like a demon's manual to you, because it's going to allow any servicer, no holder in due course, that's all out the window, because their intents are to overwrite the holder in due course provisions across this nation so that you are denied due process of law and you can be kicked out of your home within 30 days by being classified as a blight within the system. And a blight within the system is a non-performing asset, a legacy loan, or a modified loan under the National Foreclosure Acts. Now, you got to remember that these National Foreclosure Acts are the swap out through the back doors, and it's a little bit complicated, where the federal government is now claiming to be the original lender who lent you money on a 1099-A, but you never see those because you were paid $700, $800, whatever it was, on a forgiveness, and you're in the relief in order for them to take your $500, $600, or even in some cases $1 million, $2 million write-off off on the back end to swap out their antecedent debts or the 911 subsidies. So what you see, I think you have, what do you have on there? You have the grand federal, this is what was buried in the federal courts. When I found out that they were doing these, actually exchanging testimony to fabricate evidence to present before the court, and I called him on it, and I actually stated there, I took it into federal court for reconsideration because the head justice, Terrence Hatter, was actually reclused when I submitted this, but then they decided to backdate that to the old federal complaint that actually outlines how these contracts work.
Terrence Hatter recused himself?
No, one of the other judges came in, reclused him, decided they were going to backdate it and hide it to the old complaint from 2015.
I know Judge Terrence Hatter. He's a black judge in down central Los Angeles.
Third generation judge.
A federal, yeah.
Yeah.
So they took him off.
They took him
They were
off.
afraid he might be a little too honest.
They took him off, but then Michael Fitzgerald came back in and stated, no, we're going to backdate this. And we're just going to put it to an old complaint because we never gave her the right complaint number, even though it was for the current one. They backdated it to 2015. And by doing that, it hid the fact that the head justice at the state court on that California 700 form that he reports his vested interest in is actually conducting REO graft bribes being filtered through his courts in the Riverside County area.
REO, for those who don't know, is real estate owned. It's an abbreviation, REO, real estate owned. That's what they call when they take it back and it's foreclosed on. They call it an REO. That's one of the reasons I stopped doing real estate, because so many REOs, I refuse to sell or deal with an REO because somebody's been cheated.
Well, yeah,
Someone's been bamboozled out of their home and they've been hurt. And I don't want to make a commission off of somebody else's crime.
And pain, yeah.
And pain. So that's why I'm here blessing you with the television show. And thank you for watching.
And I actually, on my website, actually give you the exact property addresses and transactions that were conducted between my witnesses who fabricated evidence against me.
How far down do they have to scroll to get to it?
Actually, not that far. If they go to the witness tampering, they're going to see an upside-down business card of the real estate agent, Jeff Allen Farr, and the second agent that the appraisal, who they're partners and co-listed. The
REO Joe?
REO Joe. That's,
He actually
calls himself, he actually had the balls to call himself REO Joe.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
He's proud of it.
And, oh boy, and he flaunts it.
And you got
too.
A picture. He actually put his sign on your property.
On my property in exchange for the testimony.
Well, that's misprision of a felony, isn't it?
That is felony. It is an absolute felony. You can't. It's called spoilage of evidence.
We need a sheriff in Riverside County.
Oh no.
That'll make an arrest. We need a prosecutor that'll prosecute.
We would love to have that, except for the sheriff is the one who handed me, while this was under federal investigation.
So he's an accessory.
As an accessory.
To the crime.
To the crime.
So you're going to need a private attorney general backed up with the militia like the Bundys did. And I just mentioned that because, in case you haven't heard, if you haven't been watching my show, the Bundys called for help. The Bundys themselves, Cleveland, Ryan, Ammon, Melvin, none of them actually held a gun. They held a lasso to go get their cattle back that had already been killed by the BLM thugs, but none of them actually held a gun. But they got on a blog talk and said, help, help.
We need help.
We need help. And the militia showed up. Who's the militia? Every able-bodied person over 18 that has a rifle and is willing to use it to protect your constitutional right. That's the militia. 14 of them showed up and faced down 200 heavily flak-jacketed, helmeted thugs from the BLM's private little army. 200 backed off.
Do you have the footage of what they did?
We do, and
Please.
we'll play some of that later, not just yet.
Okay.
But we'll get to that later. But I've been showing it regularly if you tuned in, and we'll show the Bundy's official story here pretty soon. Right now, I want you to see what she's got. If you've got the ability to watch television and go to your computer and look this, on the second to the
If you
left,
go under the NAR, what I've given to the National Association of
Yeah,
Realtors,
NAR, witness tampering, and scroll down there.
Scroll down, you'll actually see the property addresses that were conducted between these two witnesses as partners listed on the MLS, and the head justice's real estate company, First Team Real Estate, filtered through his vested interest. And those property addresses are as follow: 29831 Manchado. It was a foreclosure under Countrywide MERS Recon Trust. The previous owner had a court case in it, several court cases in the Riverside County Judicial Office, and they actually denied him his home. 1043 Via Canada, San Dimas, 91773, previous owners, same case in the Riverside County. This was the Deutsche Bank Trust. And Deutsche Bank, as you know, they're going after on a current filing against people taking them down for the frauds that were committed with Deutsche Bank.
Weren't those the ones they raided in Germany and took out like all their computers and all their records, and like they were short $4 billion or something in assets they were supposed to have?
Well, Deutsche Bank
Wasn't it Deutsche Bank in Germany?
No, Deutsche Bank's been sued by Fannie Mae for failure to bring forth securities upon traditional securities. They were failed for failure to securitize proper loans, and there's reason is because these loans were never securitized. They went directly into collateralization.
There are so many felonies here, people, and in my humble opinion, and you know I just love government. You know how dearly they warm the cockles of my anal orifices. You know, the Bar Association,
Technically, I didn't swear.
you know, I didn't use any bad words, just technical words of anatomical descriptions. These Bar Association criminals that are good members in standing of stealing your homes, these are the same type of people that the original 13th Amendment, which I've shown you before over and over, I don't know if Stephen can find that, but it was passed in 1812, over 200 years ago, to ban these attorneys at law. And there was a good reason for it. And I'm going to give it to you right now in a shot glass. The same type of banking, same families, the Rothschilds, you know, and all their hangers-on that feed around the feeding trough of the Rothschilds swindle syndicate called banks, called the Federal Reserve Bank. These people, before there was a Federal Reserve Bank in 1913, way before, a century before, they were making commercial loans for a year or two and say, don't worry, we'll give you 2 years. And then they would collapse them before the 2 years and say, we want to be paid. We want to be paid everything. You got 30 days to pay us. 30 days. If you don't, we take your shipping lines or we take your whatever product you developed. And after 20 years, that was called the first central bank of the United States. But very few people knew that the first central bank of the United States wasn't owned by the United States. It was owned by the Rothschild-type creatures, the corporate creatures that had said, we got money, we'll lend it to you. And then they would collapse the loan and take it in. And what did Faye say earlier? They're changing the law come January of 2018 to within 30 days, they can collapse your loan and just kick you out of your house. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye, you're gone.
Bye-bye. 30 days. No court process. They're not going to bother with it. Too many people like Cindy Brown and Faith are figuring it out and fighting them. And Cindy Brown, after 12 years, is still in her house. That's why they changed the law. Who did it? The Bar Association attorneys who dominate Congress, who dominate the state legislatures, dominate the courts. The original 13th Amendment was intended to keep these guys out of government. It's very short. It's one paragraph. You won't find it in any of your current editions of the Constitution and amendments because they stopped publishing it in 1868, even though it had never been unratified. It was ratified and never repealed. So it's still the law, but they don't want you to know it. That's why I bought 4 books, which I've shown you on other shows, and had them right here, opened them up, and showed you. It reads very simple. If anyone shall accept, take any emolument, gift, payment from any king, prince, or foreign power, that's the Bar Association, they shall be incapable of holding any office of profit or honor in the United States or any of the states. Bingo. So as soon as they join the bar, which is a foreign power because it's international, and you can have a bar license in California and immediately go to Norway, hang up your shingle, and they will give you reciprocity. Boom, you got a bar license there. That's a foreign power. That's a mafia. That's a legal mafia, people.
Yeah, it's on steroids.
It's a foreign power. And Daniel Dizak, which, he went crazy here a couple months ago on my show. I ought to let you hear Daniel Dizak. Are we ready to slip Daniel to people right now? He's calling everybody from Chief Justice George of the California Supreme Court to the current one, whose name is Tanny, I think, and all the judges down the line are criminals. I'm not saying this. This is a former bar card holder named Daniel Dizak. Let's roll that just for a few minutes.
Yeah, you guys are going to love this.
If you didn't see this, you need to see this. Go ahead, Daniel.
Practicing attorney who was illegally disbarred, and several federal judges have taken, in my opinion, bribes from Charles Schwab or his entities and done other illegal actions, including not filing documents through the clerk's office, not only in the Ninth Circuit, but in other federal courts. So Senator Feinstein will be a very nice letter, personally signed by her, what looks like her fountain pen, on April 27th, 2017, and she said that because of the separation of powers, she couldn't do anything because at that juncture, because some of it was in litigation. Well, under the U.S. Constitution, a senator, she's the senior member of the House Judiciary Committee, I think, other than Senator Grassley, she has powers to look into the conduct of federal judges. So I have several federal judges under impeachment investigation, and I've sent several copies of letters to Dianne Feinstein. When she wrote me this letter, I'd had sent in an impeachment letter against the Chief Judge of the Ninth Circuit, Sidney R. Thomas, out of Billings, Montana, and also former Chief Judge Kaczynski. And what Judge Kaczynski did in a matter involving me called Dizak versus George et al., he willfully took bribes, in my opinion, from the Fortune 500 financier Charles Schwab. Well, I'm sure you're familiar with Schwab, talk to Chuck, and also other judges, such as Kim McLean Wardlaw. So I would really appreciate if I could meet with her, or she could come when she's in California next time. William's based out of Santa Maria. I'm sure he'd be willing to come to San Francisco, her home base, and meet with Mr. Wagner and I and discuss the gravity of several federal judges in legal matters involving me in the Ninth Circuit and other courts taking bribes, such as Judge Kaczynski, who was recently featured on 60 Minutes with Leslie Stahl. This is really serious, and that's why we're on this live show, and I really very much appreciate and respect Dianne Feinstein for writing me back, but I think she's got to do more for me. And I've also alerted President...
I appreciate your comment. I'm sorry. We actually don't allow anything to be recorded on the phone. So this is
Well,
being recorded.
this is media. This
But
is
I
a live television show, and
appreciate you calling, and I will be sure to pass
Can
along
we
the
can we
comments.
give you William's telephone number so she
Yeah.
can call him back?
I mean, I can pass along the comment, yes.
Yeah, can
Yeah,
you can I give you
Let me give you a phone number, and have her call me back. She can call me back at 805-928-1100.
Great. All right, well, I'll be happy to pass that along.
And remember, I did tell you we're on a live television show when we started this conversation, and I always do
And
my.
as you probably know, you cannot record.
Yeah,
I just
you can
asked
if I
not to,
inform
but I
you.
appreciate you calling, and I will be happy to
actually
pass
under
that along.
Washington law, I
Thank
think
you.
that you can record, but it doesn't matter. This is a live show.
She hung up. Thank you very much.
Well, we're not
She's gone.
we're doing it on open air. It's a media
Yeah.
event. It's not,
It's-
and you did inform her up front that
did.
we were on live air, so
I did.
you didn't do anything illegal in my
So
opinion.
we're not getting very far. She's not going to put us through to Dianne Feinstein.
Well,
And there you have the United States Code. There's you can see the date on that. It's like 1825, and in this 1825 official archive of a state, I can't read the state there, but maybe Portland, Maine. Yeah, Maine. I think it only been a state for 2 or 3 years. They broke off from Massachusetts. So we want to go to the next page, next shot, Stephen, where you can see there it is, the original 13th Amendment. You have never ever been told about. Nobody will tell you about this, and attorneys will deny it. And here it is. I just showed you the archive. I paid a handsome price to have the actual physical proof of these books, and you can read it. It says, very easy. If any citizen of the United States accepts, claims, receives, receives any title of nobility or honor, or shall without consent of Congress accept any retain any pension, office, or emoluments of any kind, whatever, any emperor, king, prince, or foreign power, such person shall cease to be a citizen of the United States and shall be incapable of holding any office of trust or profit under them or either of them. Now, people, that's really short and sweet. And that's already published in 1825, long before the American Civil War, where they said, oh, here's the 13th Amendment, it's an anti-slavery. No, that wasn't the real. They needed to dub that the 13th in 1866 so that you would forget that there was already a 13th Amendment. And here's what's interesting. There are archives that show all the amendments that were proposed and failed, and all the amendments that were proposed and failed, all those that were passed, and all those that were repealed, like the Prohibition Act of what, the 1920s or 1930s?
Oh, yeah. 20s.
They made alcohol in the United States illegal to consume. Nobody could sell it or buy it or even make it. And then they had to pass another amendment to repeal that one. Well, there are archives that show all the amendments that are repealed. The original 13th doesn't show up as ever being repealed, and yet it was published, and you can go to your state capital, or maybe even if you're watching this in the East Coast, like in Georgia, Florida, or Tennessee, you can go to your county. Some of your old counties will have the state statutes from 1850, 1860, and you can look it up, and there's the original 13th Amendment, before Lincoln had even declared emancipation, and then it became an amendment. So what they told you and me and Faith in high school, that this is the 13th Amendment, we're against slavery, was a lie. That was actually the second 13th Amendment. or really in numerical numbers, it was the real 14th Amendment. You have been lied to day in and day out. And what I'm telling you and what Faith is trying to tell you, these mortgage things that you thought was a mortgage aren't.
They're not. They're 12-month reverse purchase and sale leaseback commercial deeds of conveyance.
Commercial deeds of conveyance. And remember what I said back in the 1790s and the early 1800s? Under the first United States Bank, they would make these commercial loans and they would collapse them and grab your property because you couldn't pay it off. You were waiting for the 2 years, or you were hoping they would renew it for another 2 years. They didn't renew it. They grabbed it and took it back. You couldn't, so they took your property. That's what they're doing. And you've all been bamboozled. And remember when, what's his name? That little liar, that cowardly guy that didn't even show up for his National Guard service. President George W. Bush. As he was going out of office, he authorized the Secretary or Undersecretary of the Treasury to make whatever deal with the bank gangsters he could make. He said, just keep the thing floating till Obama's in and I'm out. And then they made a deal with Obama and he kept floating. We were supposed to get bailed out.
Well,
Wasn't there a bailout where we, the homeowners, were going to get bailed out?
Yeah, but what happened instead is they got 100% depreciation write-off to write off these annotated debts. This goes back to the 63 and 108 under Kirby versus U.S. Lumber. They're miscuing the IRS codes. And what they're actually doing when those bailouts took place, well, you had the employment rehabilitation and I'm drawing a blank right now, but it is on my website, where they actually, to buy these worthless subprime loans, they were given 100% depreciating write-off, which means that not only did they tandem net advance the purchase of the property, which is why I keep telling everybody, hold on to your HUD-1, that's a bill of sale, because it actually shows your property being paid off free and clear and the verbiage in your contract. And if you go on my website under the violated Supreme Court law and you scroll all the way down, that's my federal complaint that shows the tax avoidance scheme, because they've already taken the depreciation, they're carrying back the loan, and then when they foreclose on you, what they're doing is they're reconstituting the value of your property so they can write it off again. That's called double dipping.
Yeah, that's a really neat form of double dipping, people.
Oh, yeah.
And what's happening right now in America, I mean, like right now as we speak, and I've seen a lot of my friends lose their homes, take cash for keys, and just walk away with $5,000. You're letting people steal your home. You need to go to this website and start digesting the stuff. Don't tell me, oh, I only got to junior high and I didn't get to my senior year of high school. I can't understand it. If you didn't get through high school, you probably are more intelligent. You weren't dumbed down by all the, like the 13th Amendment they never told you about. Your mind will be free to understand words. Just look up the definition, get a Black's Dictionary. They have them in all the legal libraries and probably public libraries too. It's called Black's Law Dictionary. And look up what lessor means, lessee means, trustee, trustor. Look up the words and start to understand what a commercial loan is. You didn't know you were taking a commercial loan on your house, did you?
Well, that's funny. I actually use the Black Law Dictionary quite a bit in the complaint, and I did write that as a written complaint. And I know some of you know what I mean when I say that as the form of a written complaint and just a file complaint. When you actually do a written complaint, you're elaborating, you're narrating, and you're trying to make it as clear as possible. And while this was set up for you not to be able to understand it, I have done my best to take parts of the contract into the complaint as examples so you can see how the contracts were used in the origination portion of the tax-exempt special purpose vehicle. But what you don't see, and the reason that there's other verbiage like the 36-month look period and the other, verbiages that are in there, it's specifically because these are different parts of the contract where you can actually start to see the title recordings and the error and the glitches within the MERS electronic system that's designed to allocate, once those foreclosures ensue, to the specific IRS code for the tax write-off purposes. That's a large portion of the reason why on these national settlement acts you're going to see Fannie Mae 911 subsidy, employment of VA, blah, 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 taking a 1099 issued against you in exchange for their write-off against your property, is because they're swapping out their bad debt onto you because you signed this contract that granted a privilege for a freehold use in a free simple estate for them to borrow money. And if you look at the other program that we did with me, you can see the verbiage on the contract where you see all caps. Contract law is very specific. All caps designates an entity borrower. An entity borrower is covenant. That means that he is swearing that he is taking you free and clear and that you are seized from your property, but yet you can grant and convey your property elsewhere. Well, that's conveyance. That's not a mortgage. That's a conveyance. And if you look at the first line in 2924, other than trust is to be deemed a mortgage, but you irrevocably transferred these rights into a trust. And it states by state law that trusts are not mortgages.
Yeah, trusts are not mortgages. All I can tell you is I know it's confusing. And if you're saying, well, I don't have a problem, I'm not in foreclosure, I'm not worried about this, I'm going to go watch some other show on another network right now, you might be making the mistake you will bite your own foot for after January of next year. There has been an ongoing system with these bank gangsters. I don't get into name calling of what religion they are or what family group, I just lump them as bank gangsters. It's stealing, it's the bank stealing you and reducing you to a debt slave and then saying, oh, debt slave, you don't even have the right to live in your own home. I'm taking it, you don't have a place to live. They've done this since America got independence. And the first mistake was the first central bank of the United States. And I've got many YouTube clips. You go to William J. Wagner on YouTube and you'll see the Rothschilds come up and you'll see these other people have produced many of these, but they're there. What they do is they collapse the economy, grab your property, kick you in the street.
It's called the taking.
And the reason they've built these FEMA camps and they've built these decapitation railroad cars is because when millions of you are homeless and you don't even have a place to keep your guns, and so the sheriff comes and takes your gun away from you, there goes your Second Amendment right. And out at the Bundys, they were setting up these little picket areas with these little plastic fences saying, you can only protest in your First Amendment zone, and we've designated that. That, according to Eric Parker and some of the other Bundy defenders, when they heard they were setting up free speech zones, and you could only speak freely if you stayed in the zone, and the zone was placed miles from where they were killing the cattle, miles from the Interstate 15 where anybody would see anything. So in other words, you're basically told to go out and sit in the desert where nobody can see you and hear you and hold your signs and protest where it does no good. That's what triggered the militia. Said, that's it. Now they're violating First Amendment, and they came. And even though the jury, I wasn't there, but I've been told by two different people, even though the jury was told by this wicked witch of the West, also known as Judge Gloria Navarro, in her kangaroo court, she literally told the jury, disregard everything Eric Parker said on the witness stand. I'm directing you, you can't consider it in your deliberations, and bailiff, pull him down off the witness stand and sit him down, he can't talk anymore.
Yeah.
This happened in a trial in America, not Nazi Germany. No. And it just happened last month. And it was the second trial, and still the jury said, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. 4 militia defenders went free. Why am I bringing this in with what she's talking about? It's all about stealing the land.
And it's all and it is identity theft.
It's identity theft. They're stealing ranches. They stole the Hammonds. The Hammonds were offered a nice price to sell their ranch up in Oregon, and they refused. They're now sitting in jail. Basically, their crime was doing a controlled burn, which they'd done year after year after year since they owned the ranch. Never had a problem. But they did it this year after, or a couple years ago, after they refused the federal government to purchase their property. And they said, we don't want to sell. Now they did another controlled burn. Felony terrorist arsonists, they were labeled. The same thing they'd done. And the Bundys are just raising cattle and melon and kids. Yeah, Navarro. Row. I like say, but Navarro doesn't rhyme, Stephen, with kangaroo.
Okay. Yeah, I want to
Kangaroo and Navarro. Wait till I get done with her and I edit the kangaroo head on Gloria's head.
But the thing that you mentioned Cindy Brown a while back, I'd like to raise that again for the work that she actually does, because there was a question as far as fabricating and false documents. Yes, they actually do take your signature. There's a place back in Pittsburgh that they will cut and paste your signature onto the MERS documents and incorporated it in those ta-da documents that we were talking about earlier. So yeah, they are fake, but they're even more so than fake. And the reason I keep looking at my computer, because we are also live on Facebook on a live stream feed as well. The reason that they are doing that is also evident on the taxes. And if you read through the complaint, you'll understand a little bit why, especially when they have those deed recordings. They're not corporate deed transferred, they're deed of trust recordings 5-10 years after the fact. And they're doing that through CoreLogic, who has their own little barcode where they actually scan, and you can see what the purpose is using the IRS codes, like the 1031 exchange of the property for specific use. And if you look up the IRS codes, and my thing will explain that to you as well. But the taking that's really going down here is they're going back to having the federal government to control the to try to control the land, own the land.
And Harry Reid's got a big deal to do with this.
Lord.
And his son Rory Reid, who almost became governor of Nevada in 2010, and I just challenge anybody to form a militia, not to carry guns, but do the research on Rory Reid and the ENN Corporation. Just form a militia or a grand jury of 13 to 23 people and study the connections between, get the cell phone records and see what you come up with. It will floor you. See, they're giving you a lot of misinformation about North Korea. Oh, they fired a missile and it went over Japan and we should all be scared. Well, I'm not scared. I'm a Vietnam veteran and I've seen battle up close and personal. I'm not scared. All that is phooey. The Chinese don't have to fire a missile. The North Koreans don't have to fire a missile. The Chinese have 50 trillion Federal Reserve notes. All they got to do is come over and buy America. They haven't got to do this. You got to buy it. And that's what the ENN is doing. And there's 53 ranches north of Las Vegas, between North Las Vegas and the border where you cross into Utah and go into St. George, Utah. There's 53 ranches. 52 have caved in to federal regulation put on them under the auspices of this evil Senator Harry Reid, who says, oh, I'm for the working guy and the poor guy. You know what? He's putting all these ranchers out of business, all their employees, all their cowpokes out of business. But the Bundys wouldn't give in. And we owe a great deal of applause and credit to the Bundys.
We really do. God bless you.
You know, and they're sitting in jail now 18 months after one jury already found them not guilty. How could they do that? They said, we got this evidence, this evidence, this evidence. The jury
There's
said,
no
we don't care. We're doing, they didn't say jury nullification because judges just cringe if you say jury nullification. So don't say the word. You just say, I know you've got this law, but we feel the law is wrong. And so we're going to find him not guilty because the law is wrong. This is a scene with government helicopters.
You need to see this, guys.
And all brand new white SUVs for the BLM that they pulled in right there. You see them? 200 guys in 100 and some vehicles to kill cattle. I mean, their crime was raising cattle for you to have steak and hamburgers. This was their crime. This is nuts what they're doing to Bundys. Gloria Navarro needs to be indicted by a special grand jury. She needs to be put in jail. This woman, this piece of corporate
No swearing.
nastiness, she needs to be in jail. She hates the Constitution. She won't follow it. She won't follow the rules of decorum for judges in a court. She's broken at least 6 laws just in the second trial, and I didn't even look at anything in the first trial where the jury found Eric Parker, they found Mr. Loveline, Mr. Drexler, and Mr. Stewart, all not guilty. But 2 other guys, Delamus and somebody else, ended up going to jail. What was their crime? Shouldering a gun and showing up and just saying, we're here for your bunnies. If they shoot, we'll shoot back, or something like that. And they went off. One of them he's 50-some years old. He's got sentenced to 50-some years in prison. I think Gloria Navarro from her kangaroo court, she needs to serve, that woman right there. She needs to serve those 56 years in prison without any possibility of early release. That woman, I mean, she looks like she's in her 30s there. She's a little older than when that picture was taken, but she hates the Constitution. She said, the Constitution does not apply in my courtroom. Really?
Just like the judge, she would Judge Irma, she
Just
would
like
not
your
take,
judge.
would not take her own oath of office.
Because these are admiralties courts.
Denounced it in a court of law.
What is that they sign when they take an oath of office and uphold the Constitution? That's just a piece of paper that gets them in the office and snows you. You know, a guy named Michael Warkin was on my show like 7, 8 years ago, and he kept making this point. We don't have the correct ratio of representation. He was so right, but most people didn't understand what he was saying. And most people, when I take it up to them, they say, well, I don't want any more congressmen. We got too many of those rotten critters. Well, it's the reason they're rotten is because you don't have a ratio where 30,000 of them to one of, 30,000 of you to one of them, where you can actually talk to them. And it's the same for California State Assembly and the Texas State Assembly. There are too many people that don't have anybody they can talk to. I don't even pay attention to them anymore. In fact, I unregistered to vote, so nobody could vote for me. That's a different issue. But the 13th Amendment, we showed it to you tonight, and I thank you for tuning in. I would like to go to that clip, Reggie, you had up there, and let you hear this. We've never played this with the one with Gloria's in it, and I gave Stephen the time codes to start on it. Did you? Yeah, I did. You want to start at about 33 seconds into that clip that I'd sent you. I sent it to you on Facebook and email. And Reggie had it up there. I think, let's play that clip, because this is not my view. This is someone else reporting on the trial. And Faith and I will be back here very soon. We still got a lot of show to go.
Oh, yeah.
For a moment, because I don't know which clip you're talking about.
Bring it up, Reggie.
Is it on your Facebook?
Yeah, it's on the Facebook. I'd send it up. You might have to scroll down a little bit to find it. You had it up there on the screen for a while.
Okay, so while they're doing that, I'm going to answer this really quick question. When they were selling off these mortgage-backed certificates, the certificates that were attached to the manipulated LIBOR LIBOR, and what they would do with those after they would do these REMICs and pool these loans is they would batch them out and they would swap them out into other investments under the ISDA fixed. Well, the ISDA fixed index, and they would run it through a place called actually Treasure Island. That's the value of your world's currency. That's the index that controls that value. And so in technicalities, they did actually steal money from your pocket without ever removing that promissory note, which states right on it, "In God We Trust," by actually removing the worth. So they depreciated your $20 bill to a $5 value in the course of...
Or less.
Or less in the course of, several years, from 2000 and actually the height 6 all the way up into later times. And those manipulations that took place actually could be used to reverse engineer. I know that we talked a little bit on how to figure out how to reverse engineer a lot of this stuff, which is part of what my protest was about on the Grantor Recovery and Restitution Act, to utilize a way to pull these terminated REMICs. I mean, they're gone. They're absolutely gone.
Define a REMIC, because most people won't understand that term.
Sure, it's a real estate real estate investment mortgage conduit. It's actually just a tax-exempt special purpose vehicle underneath a pass-through trust. A grantor trust or a mortgage pass-through grantor trust has a series of 3 different tax-exempt special purpose vehicles. They're called in REMIC 1, REMIC 2, and REMIC 3 respectively. REMIC 1 is what they use to pool the funds in. REMIC 2 is typically where they pool the asset, where they depreciate your asset on a purchase, sale, leaseback, or they pretend to own the property as intellectual property in their system. And the third is where they pay out the dividends to the investors. So none of these are specifically designed to hold both the deed and the trust. They're straight into the collateralization process, which is why Deutsche Bank was sued for failure to securitize under traditional security methods. But the way they did it, in the deflation of the value of the funds, you actually could utilize, in theory, the 16th Amendment and the diminutive of loss principles by pulling them all back into a bankruptcy under a 303 to force them into restructure, even though they've been terminated, which in turn can be reverse swapped out to take these treasury notes that are traded against our deficit and could actually reduce the deficit, if done properly and legally and correctly, about 2/3, literally.
Wow.
So there are different ways to do it, and that's one of the things that I created in that foundation that I did, and that was part of the amicus curiae that I actually offered at the state level and said, look, let me write this up, let me show you the codes in the IRS that you can actually go into to make what you're trying to do and all these depreciation backdoor buddy swaps that are actually, you know, swapping out your bad debt onto the American people, which, by the way, guys, that's called inverse condemnation, and that is against the law. A different format to where you could actually do it legitimately, legally, through a novation to a different platform. And yeah, we figured it out. But you guys, by kicking us out of our homes and forcing us to the street and sending out these thugs to beat the living crap out of me, and I wish they would show my pictures of what I looked like after that assault. Because my service dog, I have to retire him now too. If all of those who know me know that my dog, Indiana, was with me at every trial.
When did they beat the crap out of you? Was that in the court?
No, I was actually threatened in the court. Very heated conversations with the opposing counsel,
Some of the bruises.
who was accusing me of.
But where did it take place, the beating?
At the house, prior to.
At your home?
After the sheriff issued me that 5-day notice to get out. We were just saying,
The sheriff did this?
The sheriff did that, even though he had no business to do that because of the federal issues that were going on. And this goes back to Cindy Brown, where
There's your dog that can't take it anymore.
No, he's limping permanently. So that's a service dog. That's an ADA violation. The ADA, you wanted to know how they violated my rights? Well, they refused me to come in on a court call on a motion to vacate that had a preposition in there to write an amicus curiae with an idea that could actually stop these malicious and prosecutions and these graft bribes. It would stop it entirely, and it wouldn't hurt CalPERS. It would actually replenish CalPERS and be able to create a different. Well, I'm not going to go into it, but there's a lot of things that could have been done, and you guys blew it. You chose to beat the living crap out of me, and you chose to force us out of our home, and then you tote the sheriff in after the fact, Joe, REO.
So we need a new sheriff in your county.
Oh boy, do we! And they're actually sending out the coroner to serve these as well.
They're sending out the coroners
coroner.
to serve
The sheriff's coroners to serve it, because a person can't complain. They have to have the coroner to serve the sheriff. And if they're sending out the coroner.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Most people don't understand what you mean. One of the few people that can arrest a sheriff is the coroner.
Yeah.
In Wisconsin, where I come from, the sheriff is one elected separate office. The coroner is also a separate elected office. They're not the same. In California, the office is actually called sheriff/coroner. They put them in one. But still, even in California, the coroner, the head coroner, is the only person that can arrest the sheriff, because they're usually the one that, hey, these are all sheriff bullets in the back of the victim here. Obviously, and they could say, well, the sheriff is lying. I'm going to get a warrant. I'm going to go arrest the sheriff. But it never happens. I can't find. Maybe Michael Warren can. if I gave him $10, could research it and find when the last time, not happening for $10. Maybe you'd find out the last time a coroner in this state of California actually arrested a sheriff. But I'm sure it was over 100 years ago, if ever. It just ain't happened. And this is why I think people eventually we're going to get to the point where there's going to be no choice. You're going to have to form the militia like the Bundys did. Well, actually, the Bundys didn't even form. They just called for the militia.
Yeah, but know the risk. Can we show
Know
them
the risk.
show
Yeah.
them the shooting? Show them what they did.
Let's show this video. Reggie's got it ready to roll, right?
And this is what's really scary because this is what's coming, guys. And I hate to say it, but it is.
So I'm giving you a head start so you can be prepared. Can we get that video?
Yes.
Roll
And
that.
Navarro made a mockery of the judicial
There we go.
system today. The first Bunkerville trial is underway in Las Vegas, Nevada. The prosecution has had over 5 weeks to present their case. Now that the defense is ready to put on their case, Judge Gloria Navarro has shut them down. Out of the entire witness list, there is one witness, other than the defendants, that she will allow to testify. Garrett Frenner was a witness to the slaughter of the Bundy cattle. However, Judge Navarro will not allow him to testify to those events. The prosecutors and the FBI spent a couple of hours harassing this man, threatening him with prosecution if he dared to testify. She has made it clear that he can only testify to which of the defendants he saw with guns. Every witness that the defense tried to proffer today was questioned by the judge. She stressed to each one of them that she was ready to have them removed from the courtroom in handcuffs if she thinks they are committing perjury. Judge Navarro then backed up the prosecution when they threatened witnesses by naming them as unindicted co-conspirators. Navarro allowed this bullying and took part in it herself. After the intimidation of their witness, the defense believes he has been compromised and stated they are unsure of calling him as a witness. This made Eric Parker so distraught and upset that they have no witnesses for their defense that he broke down and cried in the courtroom. This, of course, made his wife and supporters cry as well. Judge Navarro showed no sympathy. Reports are that she actually laughed out loud at their distress. The prosecutors also laughed and joked at the defense. She continued to reiterate that they have no rights as defendants. Navarro also stated in the courtroom that no one is guaranteed their First Amendment rights or their Second Amendment rights. Additionally, she told everyone that there is never a time when anyone is allowed to defend themselves against a law enforcement officer, even if they caught them breaking into their home. If he even sees a gun near them, they are guilty of assaulting him. The defense had plans to call numerous witnesses, including Carol Bundy, Shauna Cox, Michelle Fiore and more. Judge Navarro refused to allow them to testify because she feels their testimony might risk her jury to nullify. Jury nullification is her worst fear. She continues to tell the defense that she will not allow them to put on any defense that might sway her jury to nullify. This includes any information of why these men came to Bunkerville, the abuses of the BLM agents, and more. Judge Navarro was quoted as saying, "The risk of jury nullification, for the jurors to hear about different defense witnesses, that can't happen." Navarro mentioned this at least 3 times during the day. When the defense team attempted to object, she shut them down again, saying, "Don't bother to object," as she intended to side with the prosecution each time. And she carried through with this threat, not allowing the defense any leeway at all. Dan Love was the special agent in charge of the operation in Bunkerville, and his testimony was the main evidence in front of the grand jury. However, because he is under investigation for abuses, Judge Navarro has ruled his testimony is irrelevant and will not allow him to be called to testify. Eric Parker has now decided that he has no choice but to testify. He may very well be the only witness in the defense case. This case could end up in the jury's hands as early as tomorrow. The heavy-handed judge has ruled these men do not deserve the right to defend themselves.
Keep drinking coffee, stare me down across the table while
Well, here we are again. I hope you enjoyed seeing the Wicked Witch of the West, also known as Gloria Navarro, who runs a kangaroo court in Las Vegas. You know, she got appointed on Christmas Eve on recommendation of that arch criminal, Senator Harry Reid, senior senator at the time from, and right up until current times, of Nevada. And with virtually very little background checking on her, come May 10th, 2010, Obama appoints her a federal judge. And only a few years as a federal judge, and she becomes the senior chief judge of the federal judges in Las Vegas when there's other older, more experienced senior judges there. How does that happen? Hello? How does that happen, people? This is craziness. She should be teaching school to deaf, dumb, and blind people underwater in a prison. I hope you militia out there, I'm too old and I can't hit the bullseye anymore at 100 yards. But I know there's your young guys out there. They're pushing us intentionally to a civil war. The judges will look you right in the eye and say, I'm going to rule for the bank anyway, even though you proved it's fraud, even though you proved they don't have the original note. Without the original note, they cannot, and this is probably why, because
That's why they override it. Yeah,
they override it because of what she was explaining. It wasn't a mortgage note at all anyway. So they just show up and say, here's our affidavit of lost note. It's just as good. Really? If I lend you a $100 bill and you make a Xerox copy of it, and the next day I say, hey, it's time to give me back my $100, you say, well, here's a Xerox copy of it. It's just as good.
It's just as good.
It's just, no, it isn't. And the Secret Service is dropping their balls. Did I say that right?
I wouldn't
Because
know.
it's their job to arrest this kind of
No,
crime.
don't have any.
It's their job. This is security fraud. I'm just telling you the raw, unvarnished truth, just the way it is, people.
Right, and the thing that kills me too is they're out there, these federalized banking industry idiots are out there thinking that the homeowners are out there going, well, we want a free home. We're just going to go after because you did something that. No, that's not what the people want. The people want their right to own property. They want their rights to home ownership. They want to be able to know that that roof over their head, there's a substance for substance agreement that has been entered into. That means that after I pay my mortgage for 10, 15 years, you know, you're not going to go out and emulate and pretend to default on it because you borrowed money that you don't want to pay back, but you're using me as a partner to do it. No, they want to know that there's a real bank that gave them the money so that they can buy a home. And that is not what took place in our nation.
That's exactly right. And this is what I said on my show like 4 or 5 years ago. I gave my own State of the Union address after Obama and after Bush. And I basically said they have so convoluted the deeds, robbed the counties of filing fees through MERS. MERS, everybody running MERS should be in prison as well because they set the system up to defraud.
And if you look into the internal system, they absolutely transcribe between each other that they're fully aware that they're committing the frauds.
And they're getting away with it because you're bar-carded criminals all the way up to the state Supreme Court justices, as Daniel Dijak, you heard him talking about it earlier, and that was a clip from an earlier show this year. They're all in on the crime. And that's why I urge people, don't hire an attorney. Ever.
Challenge subject matter jurisdiction.
Challenge a subject
on my
matter.
website, read it.
Go to her website, which
the
is...
answers to the question, they're on there. Just challenge it. There's majority action affidavit that they have to have when they bring forth a trustee. They never have it, and this is under 2924 at sequence. You need to know what these laws are.
WeThePeople.com. We the plaintiffs. WeThePlaintiffs.com. Go there and read her what she's got. Because if you're You know a neighbor that's a neighbor that's in trouble. Have them go there and read it. There is help available. You've got to understand how they're tricking you.
Right, and the complaint at the federal level was never meant to
And the
be a
sheriffs
complaint.
aren't smart enough.
It was meant to be an explanation, documentation of what was transpiring. Now, the motion to vacate that went in there to correct it on the first amended answers to the complaint, that absolutely challenged subject matter jurisdiction. It actually pulled them to the table. It said, okay, where's your authority? Where's your Dunning report? Where's the protocol that you're supposed to follow in order to go to a judicial review? And if you actually look at the benchmark for unlawful detainers, you can read in that benchmark that they are violating the law because they're depriving you of your due process rights. And I've had my rights violated. You guys, you're going to jail. I'm a federal witness. You tampered with, I'm sorry, but
And the federals aren't coming to bail you out. They're trying to.
no,
They're just letting you get beat up.
They're letting me get beat up.
So being a federal witness isn't really a great deal
Nope.
either. There's
Oh, no.
nobody in the government system you can trust, which means it's going to come back to we the people form our own grand juries under that great case by Scalia in 92, 504 U.S. 36. Please read it. I don't think it's on her website, but read it. Just Google 504 U.S. 36. It's U.S. versus
Defrauded nations, it might be on.
Williams. Anyway, we're going to go and let you see the official Bundy trailer, or at least part of it, so you'll understand what's happening.
They shot him in cold blood with no defense.
Well, that was Finnegum. That was up in
That was
Oregon.
Finnegum,
And
yeah.
we need to get a show on Finnegum and explain to you how the feds committed the first murder in this Civil War. Because it is a war.
It is a war.
It's not just an information war. It's a real bloody war, and they killed the first victim.
And they will kill you.
And they
and
will
me
kill you.
if they get the chance. The attempted is not.
There's Finnegum right there.
Is working for a federal agency of the executive branch, the BLM, Forest Service, or Fish and Wildlife. Government employment tallies at 58% of Harney County income. This percent does not include those on government
That's
assistance.
Ammon Bundy.
Together, approximately 70% of Harney County residents depend on the government for their living.
This is
The
Norton.
remaining minority, the producers, are choking from forceful regulation and live in fear of retaliation if they speak out. Those that do speak out against the federal agencies, like the Hammonds, are targeted, demonized, their lands are taken, they are prosecuted and thrown in prison. What has happened to us, the Hammonds, and the people of Harney County is a type and a shadow of what is happening to our entire country. We must stop federal agencies of the executive branch from taking over and controlling the producing class. Federal agents have shown they are willing to destroy entire state and county economies and
That's
put the American
Finnegum there
people
with
in
his hands
prison
up and the
to
cowboy hat.
protect, increase, and justify their gain and control. It is rapidly coming down to federal agencies gaining control or the American working class. And these federal agencies of the executive branch have been building up heavy military forces to make sure their projects of ambition are not limited. Look at what they put us in jail for: conspiracy to impede a federal officer's duties. Or in other words, resisting them from doing what they want to do. Federal agencies have conspired for years in impeding the jobs and taking the incomes of the American working class, diminishing states, counties, and destroying more incomes and livelihoods than any other people in the history of this country. When someone finally stands up and says no more, when that person says to federal agencies, your duties are unlawfully destroying our livelihoods and destroying our states, our counties, our future, and our children's future, when this message becomes loud enough that people take notice, federal mercenaries hired by agencies of the executive branch move in, shoot and arrest the messengers, and drive fear into anyone that might stand up. Federal agencies of the executive branch are willing to kill and destroy families to protect their ambitions to get gain. Just ask the Finnegum family or the 26 Bundy children with their fathers locked up, if I speak the truth. No moral principle, tradition, heritage, livelihood, or way of life, or life itself appears to be more important than their ambitions to get gain. Produce nothing, take everything. Modern day robbers. In my 40 years, I have seen a stomach full of my hardworking neighbors lose their homes, incomes, heritage, and freedoms at the hands of these wool-covered predators. Often I ask myself, what is to be done? What are we to do? How can we allow this to continue? Do people care about what is happening to our country? Seeing directly what federal agencies did to the Hammonds and to the citizens of Harney County, experiencing firsthand at the Bundy Ranch how federal agencies are willing to kill everyday American men and women to keep themselves in power. If the Lord did not protect so many people to come and show up at the Bundy Ranch, I am certain that federal agents would have taken our lives. Something had to be done. How could we pass these gross and growing deteriorations of rights and liberties over to our children? What would be left by the time they are raising their children? Feeling a providential urge, a love for my neighbors, and a great concern for my country, I used the public connections made during the Bundy Ranch to inform everyone I could about the abuses to the Hammond family and how adverse federal agencies have taken over and destroyed the economy in Harney County. Many, including myself, began to petition the county and state representatives to do their duty and protect the liberties and pursuit of happiness of the people in the county. All of this fell on deaf ears. The elected representatives did not even respond to one of our emails. We know they received thousands. We learned later that the FBI, an agency of the executive branch, contacted the sheriff, state and county representatives, and directed them not to respond to the people's petitions. This lack of response created an extreme environment of frustration with the people. No matter what the people did, even after filing an official notice of redress of grievance, the representatives would not respond. It is my belief that if the FBI would have stayed out of it, elected representatives would have responded and taken a lead. This would have ended the mass frustration, and the people would have gotten behind their representatives with major support, satisfying any need for the people to act on their own. The entire protest at the Wildlife Refuge could have been avoided if the FBI would have stayed out of the way of our republic form of government. But then again, the FBI could not justify their jobs or have a reason to play with their war toys if the American system of government was allowed to work properly. This reminds me of a John F. Kennedy quote, "Those who make peaceful revolutions impossible make violent revolutions inevitable." The Hammond case was setting a very dangerous precedent in federal court. The abuse has been too great to turn a blind eye. The elected representatives were ignoring the people. What were we to do? Feeling inspired to do so, on January 2nd, less than an hour before the rally in support of the Hammonds, I proposed to a group of people, including a sheriff deputy, that we need to do more to bring attention to the abuses and to educate the American people of their rights. I shared how I felt and expressed that we should use adverse possession law to reverse the actions of these federal agencies and give the land that has been stolen back to the people of the county. This was legal, beneficial to the people, and would bring a lot of media exposure to these abuses. With a majority in agreement, we took residents of a federally controlled wildlife refuge 30 miles outside of town. To create this refuge, over 100 ranching families lost their ranches, homes, their lands to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, another agency of the executive branch. As U.S. adverse possession law requires, we changed the name of the refuge to the Harney County Resource Center, changed the signs, including the vehicles and equipment, contacted the utility companies, flew the American flag high, opened the post office address, and created a land registry to adjudicate the parcels back to the people of Harney County. Oh, and meanwhile, we attracted international media attention that had no idea what adverse possession was. At times, it was quite comical watching the controlled mainstream media who had free access to roam the facilities, talking to us openly through each day, and then reporting how we were somehow dangerous armed militants. We shook our heads over this many times. In just a couple of weeks, we attracted over 1,000 visitors, men, women, and children. Even elementary students came to the center to do homework reports on the events. The local people began supplying all our food, supporting us financially, and took care of us well. They also shared their horror stories of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife the BLM and the Forest Service actions over the past several decades. Out of our many visitors, hundreds attended our seminars on property rights, including state representatives from 5 different western states. These people were taking the message back to their hometowns and organizing community meetings for us to attend. Meanwhile, the FBI, need I remind you, an agency of the executive branch, took over the high school, county buildings, and downtown Burns, and the airport, terrorizing the local people, trying to scare them into believing that their force was necessary to protect them against us. As time went on, the local people started to see through this. The FBI knew they had to act quickly to end our education on what federal agencies of the executive branch have been doing to the American people. Emails from government officials read, "The virus is spreading," indicating that our message was too effective and must be stopped. January 26th, on the way to a community meeting in Grant County, Oregon, the FBI and Oregon State Police ambushed us and opened fire without cause, shooting my brother Ryan and killing our friend and fellow Arizona rancher, Lavoy Finicum. They shot him multiple times in the back with his hands in the air. The FBI tried to cover up their participation by denying that they shot and hiding the bullet casings. If we would not have filmed the attack, they would have got away with it.
This is Cold Blood, people, on live TV.
There he is, just shooting him right there.
Never did we hold a
Lavoy
gun or
Finicum
show
falls
any
in the
type
snow.
of threat to them. We were carrying laptops, projectors, and a PA system, planning on having another effective meeting with the people of Grant County, including the sheriff. We were invited to meetings like this every day that week. Our schedule was filling up. With millions of dollars, thousands of federal agents, control of the main media, federal agencies were still not able to suppress the truth.
Yeah, and there was people. You saw Lavoy Finicum being shot dead in the snow up in Oregon, and all he was a spokesman for the Malauer Preserve, which the jury said nuts to your whole case and found all of them not guilty. The Bundys, however, were not released, and they were transferred to Nevada and are waiting for a trial, 18 months locked up. We need to make sure that all those federal agencies and all of those people, Gloria Navarro and all of them, that they go to prison, a minimum of 18 months, like the Bundys have. Sorry for that little glitch. So, what have you got we need to cover here? Because we only got like 5 minutes left.
Okay, so what I need to cover here is a specific. This is what I put on my website. This is testimony, guys, because they won't let me testify in a court of law. They're preventing me from doing so. And one of the things that was conveyed to us while we were in that court of law was that the courts were under orders to prevent homeowners from breaking through the judicial system. So they were under orders from above to deprive homeowners their due process rights. So my question would be to the federal government, because this is the resistance and this is a stand, and this is a direct question to you guys, whoever is the puppet master pulling these strings. Rights, and in turn enabling civil racketeering to be filtered through the head justice Daniel Ortellio vested ownership interest in First Team Real Estate in exchange for judicial favors in the form of REO transfers by members of the federalized banking industry, where his wife Liv hangs her real estate license. You are going to need to specifically provide me the order which was issued to use whatever means necessary to deprive homeowners of their constitutional rights to due process of law in over 30 cities up and down the California coast, including but not limited to 29 DBAs and 36 franchise offices located in Anaheim, Aurora, Granda, Bakersfield, Beverly Hills, Big Bear, Cathedral City, Corona, Fullerton, Huntington Beach, Irvine, Ladera Ranch, Laguna Beach, Laguna Niguel, Long Beach, Palm Desert, Oceanside, Marina del Rey, Mission Viejo, Newport Beach, Pasadena, Palm Springs, San Clemente, San Diego, Seal Beach, Sunset Beach, Temecula, Tustin, Yorba Linda, Valencia, and Westlake. I want that order. from whoever issued it stating that you are giving the courts orders to commit civil racketeering in exchange for judicial favors that allowed a witness to fabricate spoilage of evidence, where we actually testified with a professional title witness who was slapped and removed from the case because they planted a juror to approach her, and to deprive me of my ADA advocate, and to do what you did to me and my property in order to violate my constitutional rights to shut me up. I want to know who the hell you are, and I want you to answer me, because this is a stand, and you're going to see a hell of a lot more of it, I hope, after tonight.
And that was in the court, and we have footage of her attorney, a young attorney named Patricia something, and she dropped out of the case after that. And before that, she was like, tough, I'm going to do this for you, Faith, I'm right in there for you. And then I'm gone, I'm out of here, bye. That's why I think we're going to end up with a civil war. Either the sheriffs stand with the people and stop evicting people with this fraudulent commercial paperwork, or there's going to be a civil war. The Bundys was just like the first rally. Nobody got killed. But the militia showed up and made 200 federal agents back down. That's why it's significant. Then the Bundy sons, Ammon and Ryan, went up to help the Hammonds, who are sitting in prison for doing a controlled burn that they'd done every year for dozens of years, until the year they refused to sell their ranch to the feds. And then they said, we're arresting you as arsonist terrorists. And what's really screwy, and we could bring up the footage at another show, is then the BLM went and did a controlled burn and burned barns, homes, ranches, fences, and nobody was even charged. That's not equal application of the law. This is becoming a Nazi police state. And if you can't see that yet, if you didn't notice it when they were stealing people's children that then disappear and get killed in foster care, this is becoming a Nazi land. And we should have had the militia defending parents when the social worker and some stupid cop that didn't know any better shows up, well, I'm here to take your child. Not today, you won't. That's when the militia should have started showing up. And now it's to where they're going to take your home, so if you had your kids, you got no home to keep them in. They're trying to steal the Bundy's ranch. It's the last one, and I guarantee you, it's not going to improve employment. With that, I want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
And on Facebook too. Thank you guys
for being with us. I'm sorry about that little glitch. And here's New West to close out the scene with some good music. And I put on my hat and I salute you who had the intestinal fortitude to put up with seeing the ugly, wicked witch of the West, Navarro of the Kangaroo Court. Here's New West. Thanks for joining us. William Wagner and Faith Bashir, my guest.
God bless you guys.
And don't forget to write the Bundys and pray for them. Amen and amen.
I mingle with each grain of sand, and the land it is my birthright. I am still here. Todavía estoy aquí. I am still here. Todavía estoy aquí. In the fog of early morning, or the misty haze of twilight, beyond the sagging ruins of these adobe walls, you may see me in the dust that shimmers in the half-light, or hear me in the whisper of the grass so green and tall. Todavía estoy aquí, I am still here. Todavía estoy aquí, my soul is dancing in the moonlight. I mingle with with each grain of sand in the land that is my birthright. I am still here, todavía estoy aquí. I am still here, todavía estoy aquí.